guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. So, I just finished this K-drama. It's called Mouse, and it is one of the best psychological thrillers I have ever watched. Okay, so it came out last year from March 3rd to May 19th, and it has 20 episodes, so it's a little bit longer than your typical K-drama. Now, if you like murder mysteries, if you like serial killers, if you like detectives, then you will really enjoy this show. I was pleasantly surprised. I read the synopsis and I thought, oh, it's just your typical cop detectives pairing up and trying to defeat a serial killer because there's like a string of murders, right? No, there's so much more to that. There are so many intertwined cases and characters who are not who they appear to be, and a lot of unreliable narration, so you can never really trust everyone. Every character has their own secrets. So let me read you the synopsis and I'll get more into depth about the show. So, according to the plot synopsis, it says, Jung Ba-dum is a rookie police officer working at a police substation. He is an honest person and tries to attain justice. He faces a psychopath murderer who places the entire nation in fear. Jung Ba-dum's life is totally changed afterwards. Now, if you're like me and you first read the summary, you're thinking, okay, well, the main character is a rookie cop and, you know, he ends up falling headfirst into this serial killer murder case and he has to try to solve it, right? It doesn't sound anything special, but please do not be deceived by the summary, okay? I'm going to tell you why this is an amazing psychological thriller. Okay, so what makes this special is that it really calls into the question about nature versus nurture. Are psychopaths born or are they made based on their environment? So in this show, 20 years prior to the start of the series, there is a scientist who is able to isolate and identify a peculiar gene, which he dubs the predator gene. Now this gene has a really high percentage chance of predicting if a fetus will grow up to become a psychopath. However, there's a caveat. While there's a 99% chance that the person will become a psychopath when they're born, there is a 1% chance that they will actually become a genius instead. So it comes into the moral question about whether the mother should abort the fetus or give birth to the fetus, and whether the government should get involved and regulate testing of this gene. Should the government get involved and try to detect this gene to kind of regulate the population and try to weed out potential serial killers before they end up growing up and causing destruction and chaos to society? Or do you want to give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that they grow up to be upstanding citizens if they're raised the correct, proper way with love and care and all that stuff, right? So first of all, just after seeing that first part in the show, I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting because I bet we're going to have issues where, it'll be hard to identify whether a person with this psychopath predator gene is actually a psychopath or just a genius. So yeah, there's also an intricate web of relationships in this show. So I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize and explain some of the main characters. Okay. And I'm not going to start with the main character, who is Jung Ba-dum, but I'll get to him. So I'll first start off with the past. So we have Han So-jun. He is a skilled neurosurgeon. He is also a serial killer called the Headhunter. During his time, which was, again, I said 20 plus years before the start of the series, he would go around murdering and decapitating his victims. What does he do with their heads? Well, he takes the brains from the heads and uses it for his research and experiments. You see, he is trying to perfect brain transplantation, and he believes that in order to do so, he needs to get unwilling test subjects. Originally, he started off with dissecting and experimenting and testing on mice, but then he realized that, I gotta go bigger, and so he started hunting down humans. And so he gets caught and gets sent to jail, but just because he's behind bars doesn't mean that his influence is not still prevalent in society and on the people around him. Next, we have Daniel Lee. Daniel Lee is Han So-jun's former friend. They used to be really close friends until Daniel found out that So-jun was the headhunter. Daniel Lee is also a geneticist, a scientist, and he is the one that identified the predator gene. He's the one that was able to find the gene, isolate it, and does testing. So he has this service where mothers can come to him and pregnant mothers can come and get their fetuses tested to see if they have this gene. And so one person who has this gene is Sung Yo-han. Sung Yo-han is a surgeon. He is also Han So-jun's son. And yes, he has the psychopath gene. His mother, Sung Ji-eun, had gotten him tested at Daniel's laboratory, and she struggled to determine whether or not she should abort her fetus or she should give birth to him. And it was a struggle for her, but eventually she decided to keep him. So he grows up to be a surgeon. I'm not sure what kind of surgeon. He's a doctor, a surgeon, and he's a person of interest because in the present day, a string of serial murders start occurring, and some people are suspicious of him because he is the offspring of the headhunter. Next, we have the main character of the show, Jung Ba-rum. He is a rookie police officer, and he also has the psychopath gene. His mother also got him tested and found out that he has this gene also. Now, is he actually a psychopath, or is he one of the 1% geniuses? I don't want to spoil anything for you, so I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, he is one of the main characters, and he ends up joining forces with Go Mu-chi, who is another main character. Go Mu-chi is a detective whose parents were killed by the headhunter in the past. And so he has a vendetta against the headhunter, and he is also quite wary against Sung Yo-han since he is the headhunter's son. So yeah, they form an unlikely bond. He has a bit of a temper. He actually wants to get caught killing someone, killing one of the criminals that he catches in order to get sent to the same prison as the headhunter so that he can murder the headhunter. But so far he has been quite unlucky because Jung Ba-rum always manages to foil his plans of murdering one of their suspects or criminals that they catch. Then we have Choi Hong-ju. She is a broadcast journalist, and she's also Sung Yo-han's girlfriend. Not only she is his girlfriend, and she knows his identity as being the son of the headhunter because it's kind of like a hidden fact that some people know and some people don't know. But she knows that he is the son of the headhunter, as well as being pregnant with Sung Yo-han's child. So, does that mean, will the predator psychopath gene carry over to her child, or will it not, right? That is something that we got to take into consideration. She also has her own secrets. She's not just your ordinary civilian. She seems to have a bit of a backstory, a dark backstory, and she's committed a few crimes as well when she was an adolescent, and you'll learn more about it as you continue watching the series. So she's not as innocent as you would like to believe either. Finally, we have Oh Bong-yi. She is a high school senior who lives with her grandmother. She is a childhood friend of Jung Ba-rum, and she has a crush on him. Yeah, she's a tsundere, so she always denies having a crush on him, but we know that she actually likes him, and the grandmother is always trying to set them up together, although he is quite older than her. And so Jung Ba-rum's like, I just see her as a younger sister. And Oh Bong-yi is like, he's too old for me, but she does like him. I don't really quite know their ages. I know Oh Bong-yi is a high school senior, so she's like 17 or 18. Jung Ba-rum would be maybe like late 20s, so there is a bit of an age gap there. But don't worry, they don't start doing anything romantic until she is of age, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah. But okay, so we've gone over some of the main characters. Now, let me tell you about why this series is so intricate, that is because there are numerous serial murder cases that are happening simultaneously at the same time. Okay, so first of all, we have the headhunter murders, which happened in the past, 20 plus years ago, conducted by the headhunter, where the headhunter decapitated his victims to perform brain transplant surgeries. Okay, so that's what he was doing. That's what Han So-jun was doing in the past. Then in the present day, we have the Mujin murders, where the victims are killed because they lacked one of the 7 deadly sins. So someone is going around acting like they are the Almighty and judging others because of their lack of sin. And that is the case that Jung Ba-ram and Go Mu-chi are investigating. They also pair up with Choi Hong-ju because she has a broadcast television show called Detective or Sherlock Hong-ju or something like that. And so they're all working together to find evidence and try to figure out who's the one behind these murders. There doesn't seem to be any connection between any of them except for the fact that they have been linked to a different one of the 7 deadly sins. And of course, one of the prime suspects that Go Mu-chi suspects is Sung Yo-han, because he, again, like we said, he is the son of the headhunter, and so Go Mu-chi is really, really sus of him. But Yo-han might not be as bad as we think he is. You know, maybe there's a lot more to the story than what's on the surface. Is he really like his father? Then we have a third case happening at the same time. We have the tie knot murders. This actually happens, right after the Mujin murders. So it's like around the same time period. The tie knot murders is this guy who's going around and killing females. His female victims are killed because they were viewed as vulgar. So there's this guy going around and judging women for not acting ladylike or fitting into his definition of how women should act. So for example, he targeted hostesses, and he targeted girls that like to flaunt their wealth, or girls that cheated and stuff like that. So he has like a vendetta against women. And so they're trying to figure out, try to catch that guy. And then we jump back to the past, and there's this series of murders called the Susong murders that took place right after the headhunter murders, where a killer would leave apple slices in the victim's stomachs. And it was a cold case, it had gone cold, but Jung Ba-ram and Go Mu-chi seemed to think that the killer might still be preparing to make a comeback in the present. And so after they deal with the Mujin murders and the tie knot murders, they're back on the Susong murder case. It had been closed in the past, but they're reopening it because they believe that they might know who actually is the murderer and why it had been hard to find him for so long. And then finally, we have the serial predators murders. Now this is also taking place in the present, right after the Mujin murders and the tie knot murders. This is a series of murders where the victims are all psychopathic predators and criminals. So there's someone going around like a vigilante, and they're killing and torturing criminals and murderers who had killed their own victims in the same way. So for example, there was one predator who would like leave certain marks on their victims. And so when that murderer's body is found in the present, their body has the exact same marks. So whoever this vigilante is, they're doing the whole an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth thing. I know it's really confusing. Like I said, I went through a whole bunch of different cases that are happening at the same time. And even though the headhunter murders happened in the past, they're still talking about it in the present. And like I said, the Susong murders, which happened in the past with the apple slices, is also reemerges and becomes a case that's reopened in the present as well. So we have old cases being dug up and being reopened and investigated, as well as current ongoing serial murders that are happening. And so Jung Ba-ram and Go Mu-chi have a lot of work on their plate, because it just seems that their tiny town is constantly being hounded by serial murderers. Yeah, a lot of predators in this area. So Why is this show so good besides the fact that there's just so much going on? Well, there are many plot twists, okay? Number one is that Jung Baram is a very unreliable narrator. What does that mean? It means that he doesn't know which of his thoughts and memories are real. He ends up getting into a bit of an accident where he gets amnesia, and he starts to forget himself, and he starts having memories that he's not sure if they're his own or someone else's. Now, again, it'd be hard for me to really go more in depth about it without spoiling major plot points, so I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, Jung Baram starts going a little crazy. He's not sure if, and like I said, he has a psychopath gene, so he doesn't know if he's having these scary memories and if they belong to him as a child or if they belong to someone else but somehow transferred onto him. It's gonna be hard. Okay. As for the reason why he suspects that these memories and thoughts might be someone else's is because after the accident that he ends up in, he actually gets attacked. It's not an accident. He gets attacked. And he has to get surgery done. And his brain is quite damaged. And so he gets a part of a brain transplant. Tell me if you can figure out where this is going. Who do you think did the brain transplant for him? Who's the only one who's really successful at that in this show? Jung Baram gets a part of a brain transplant, and he starts having memories and thoughts that he doesn't believe to be belonging to him. He starts feeling bloodthirsty, and he starts wanting to hurt others. Now, he's scared because he's like, is it me? Or is it the person whose brain was given to me? So yeah, that's why he's like an unreliable narrator, because at first we think we're seeing it from his point of view, but then we learn that it's really not the case. And then number two is that there are many cases that are connected with so many unexpected links. So like I said in the previous section, where there are so many ongoing cases happening, they are all actually interrelated. You would think that these are just separate cases with different motives and different killers, but there are common links between them. And we'll learn that as Jung Baram and Go Mu-chi start to investigate them further. Finally, there is a secret organization called Oz that is observing and interfering from behind the scenes. They are tailing Jung Baram, and he starts to do his own investigation, trying to figure out who these people are and why they're following him. And so we've got him doing a lot of stuff. He's investigating a series of murders that are happening in town while also trying to figure out who's tailing him and stalking him. So our poor MC just does not catch a break. But yeah, so there's just so much going on in this show that it gets a little overwhelming. In a good way, but it could also be in a bad way because it gets confusing. So a weakness or con to this is that because there are multiple cases being investigated at the same time, it gets a little confusing. They don't always refer to the different cases by their names. Like, I categorize them as the Headhunter murders, the Mujin murders, the Susong murders, the Tai Knot murders. They don't always do that. They sometimes refer to the cases based on the perpetrator. Sometimes they call it by the region. And so it gets confusing. You start to forget who they're referring to or what victims they're referring to because there's so many names. And yeah, it can get a little hard to follow. But besides that, it eventually all makes sense in the end. And you'll realize when the puzzle pieces click into place that, like, wow, the writers of this show really worked really hard. They worked really, really hard to make sure that everything was interrelated and connected. The only other weakness I have is that, and again, this is a personal preference, I wish that the characters would share information and work together more rather than working on their own. So, except for the Mujin case, the Mujin serial murder case that Jung Baram, Go Mu-chi, and Choi Hong-ju worked together on, the one with the 7 deadly sins, all the subsequent cases that pop up, they all are investigating separately. And I'm thinking, if they're partners and colleagues, shouldn't they be like sharing more information and working together? Why are they always doing things on their own? Like, they're always out of the office, out of the station, and like, I'm pretty sure they have other duties to do, but like, he's always outside. He's never at his desk. He is constantly making phone calls and running around. And yeah, so I wish that they got to really bond more, because they do end up bonding in the show. He experiences loss, and he takes it upon himself to become a young figure to Bottom, which I think is really sweet, because Bottom didn't really have that. So I wish that they would have extended on that and kind of went more into depth about their bond and maybe them hanging out more, just investigating more, because Gomuchi is a pretty cautious guy. He's really suspicious and pessimistic, and Jung Bottom is really like optimistic and klutzy and awkward, and so their dynamic is really funny. But I wish that we could have seen their antics more together. Yeah. So finally, let me get to my conclusion. Well, Mouse is a really interesting take on the serial killer genre. I've watched a lot of shows with murder mysteries, but this one really just took me for a ride. It plays on the idea of nature versus nurture and asks us the question about whether or not we should eliminate potential threats to society starting from the womb. So like I mentioned earlier, like, are killers determined at birth? Is it like, are they born with predatory instincts? Or are they made and influenced by society? Can they be repressed or suppressed, you know? If we knew which fetuses would grow up to become psychopaths, should we stop them from being born, or should we give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that they will not be dictated by their genetics? That's some food for thought. If you have an opinion on that, please let me know in the comments. But yeah, Mouse is full of twists and turns, making us constantly doubt what we see and know. So, if you want a gripping psychological thriller, then please check out this K-drama. Yes, that's all I have to say for Mouse. Honestly, it was quite enjoyable, really refreshing for a serial killer drama, and I've watched a lot. I was constantly thinking that I understood what was happening, and then it turned out I was completely off the mark. And the show does a really good job of confusing you and making you believe things that aren't true. And then revealing it in a way that makes you feel like, duh, I should have seen it from the get-go. But yeah, it really takes you on this whole journey into figuring out the killer, the perpetrator, the predator. So I hope that my discussion on this K-drama has enticed you to check it out. If you have already watched Mouse, then please let me know what are your thoughts on it, and try to make a note if you're going to talk about spoilers. Let me know, like, mark your comment with a spoiler note, so that others would avoid reading it if they don't want to get spoiled for the show. But yeah, other than that, thank you for listening to me talk about Mouse, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.